Good afternoon, everyone. This is Robert Schoenberger, Editor-in-Chief of IndustryWeek. And once again, I have to apologize. We're still having trouble with our streaming service. We thought we had it figured out this time, but we are still just running into technical difficulties getting our guests logged on and able to discuss these things with you. I'm sorry about that. We are working on these issues, and hopefully we'll have them solved soon. At which point we will reschedule this. But again, apologize for the problems getting this live today. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I think we have just gotten this fixed. I am going to bring on Laura Putre and Jennifer Moss because it looks like we have actually solved our technical problems this time, and I am going to disappear from camera and let them take over. So great. We have everyone here.
Hi, Jennifer.
So Laura, if you could go ahead and start, I think we're all on board.
Hello, how are you?
Can you hear me? I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent.
For the little blips
we
here,
were able to figure it out. No, it's part of pandemic
I just want to welcome everyone to the club. And Jennifer, we're here with Jennifer Moss, and she's the author of The Burnout Epidemic. You're also a journalist, and you're a consultant, a strategist, and keynote speaker. So welcome. I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about why you wanted to research workplace burnout and how you went about it.
You know, it has been a circuitous journey. I think most people feel like that in their career. I've always wanted to write. I studied journalism, and I started up my own company. I co-founded it actually with my spouse, and we wanted to understand, workplace, mostly because we spend so much time in our lives there. And, I'd been curious about it, just happiness and well-being and its interplay between success and high performance at work. And we had started up this company gathering data around that and trying to figure out solutions for how to improve happiness at work. And what we kept coming across is that people are kind of constantly being given ice cream when they need water. And, the wellness programs and the offerings and the way that we were utilizing perks and some of these other downstream tactics weren't solving for people's stress and chronic stress. And it ironically, through that process, as I'm trying to help people learn more about happiness at work, I was extremely unhappy and I was burning myself out. And I kind of felt like a fraud. How am I an expert in happiness when I'm not very, very happy? And I came to the conclusion that, we need to be talking more about how we get there. What are the chronic stresses that get us to a place where we can't take advantage of those apps and the technology and the subsidized gym memberships and all those other wonderful perks that help us to optimize. And instead, we need to focus more on helping to, stop people from drowning in the river instead of pulling them out way downstream.
Do you think workplace burnout became, reached critical mass during the pandemic, or was it always a thing and then just the pandemic put a spotlight on it?
I think it's been boiling, this at this almost boiling point for a long time. We've had sort of this evolution. We talk about the quiet quitting movement right now. I mean, that was just worked a rule, 50 years ago. I mean, we've been disengaged in periods of our lives. I know that there's been times where, that we've had to really fight back and be kind of revolutionary. And that's where unions were developed. That's where women ended up in the workforce. I mean, we've had these moments throughout the workforce history that have been cataclysmic. And the pandemic was just that thing that highlighted something that was already a problem for a long time. I said it was sort of on the burner, and the pandemic just turned the burner up to high. And crises tend to do that. They exacerbate existing problems. They put a light on things that maybe we thought we could kind of not pay attention to. And we could kind of, especially as leaders and employers, we were putting the onus on individuals to solve, which made it a bit easier for us to kind of lead and manage through that. But The pandemic just said, hey, this is a problem, pay attention, because people are quitting. People are feeling like they can't do this any longer, and it's unsustainable.
So why should leaders at companies care about burnout? Like, they a lot to, I guess the old way of thinking is we have work to do here. We've got to get things done. We don't have time to like hold everybody's hand, So why should leaders care?
Well, I think what we've learned, especially out of the 2019 announcement by the World Health Organization that burnout is an occupational phenomena, it's workplace or institutional stress left unmanaged. It made it a workplace issue, and it shows up in these major signs like depletion and exhaustion, cynicism. It leads to symptoms of depression and anxiety. People are feeling emotionally distanced from their work. I mean, leaders want to care if their employees are feeling that way, because obviously it's proven to lead to mass attrition events. I mean, the Great Resignation is an example of that, but I've seen organizations lose 50% of their workforce, which is very expensive. So not only is it a good human being thing to do to care about burnout, but it's also a good business case to be caring about how to prevent burnout. And obviously, I mean, for leaders, they're probably feeling a level of burnout themselves. I mean, everyone is feeling this unsustainable experience right now. And I think something's got to change, or else we're going to see this constant churn, which is extremely cost prohibitive, and it drains revenue, and it makes us non-competitive. So there's a lot of good business cases for it.
Yeah, and we're always, like you mentioned, we're already seeing that with the Great Resignation and the quiet quitting. So what are some signs that leaders should look for that either individual employees or teams are facing burnout, and what can they do if they see those signs?
Well, important for leaders to be checking in. I'm a big fan of data, and it doesn't need to be a massive, looking back survey. I don't think those are helpful. But if we're, as leaders, we're asking and checking in more about how people are feeling, that's helpful. But we should also be looking for kind of the gray area signs. Are you noticing that people are showing up late and leaving early? Are they looking drawn and tired? Are they withdrawing? Are they more combative and conflict focused, versus collaborative and connecting people? Are they reclusive and moving away from their peers? Are they using a lot of language of permanence? This is always going to be like this, or it'll never change, sort of that hopeless language, using a lot of I in the conversation. And I know there's, no I in team, but really when we say I a lot, it's actually predictive of feeling really isolated and feeling like you don't have peer support. And so those kind of things are worth noting. Also, just we've seen a lot of people having to take more stimulants in the day, like more coffee, drinking more coffee, trying to stay awake, those types of behaviors. And then, we as individuals are, drinking more in the evenings to sort of pull ourselves down. These are the kind of things that often kind of clue a leader. And then unfortunately, what happens is we tend to then just misdiagnose as underperformance. And so we put them on a strategy to exit, or, whatever that looks like. Instead, we should think, okay, what is probably happening? This was a passionate, high performing person who was excited about work and inspired. And now they're just a poorly performing person. It's probably chronic stress. So if we can kind of handle those things, we might not lose some really incredibly talented, high performing people. We just need to stop it before they decide to leave.
And what do you do when you recognize that? Like, what steps can leaders take?
It's important for leaders to recognize that they're not mental health professionals. And I think that's a big reason why they don't feel like they can have those conversations with their staff, because they're worried, what if this escalates? What if they're really in trouble or in crisis and I can't help them because that's not what I'm skilled for? Or I don't even, just as my personality type isn't super comfortable with those types of conversations. What we need to start exercising is more conversations just in general around mental health, but also being able to say, I'm not a mental health professional, but, I am a mental health conduit. So, if you need to know what's in your EAP, I'm happy to direct you. And this is where the learning has to happen before these conversations happen with leaders. They need to know what's in the EAP and what has been offered. What are some of the wellness programs? Does your company offer mental health first aid? Can you take that and then be able to have these conversations better? Are there peer support or ERGs within the organization that can help also support? I mean, getting to know what the offerings are within your organization is really helpful. And then you can say, I'm not the professional, but I can guide you. I can help you. I can direct you. And that makes those conversations a lot easier. You just have to start up front by telling people, this is not your role. There's other people that are better at this than I am.
And, you mentioned the wellness initiatives, beyond that, are there things in our healthcare system that need to change to address burnout?
There's a lot of things that aren't just in the leadership's purview to change, and even at the organizational level to change. I mean, this is an ecosystem problem to solve that requires us as individuals to promote self-care. Leaders can model self-care, and all that legacy has to change. But we also could use, for example, some government are making policies around right to disconnect. So, in Canada, we just launched this, but it's been in France and in other parts of Europe where you have protected time where you're allowed to have balance in your life. And it's unlawful. And there's a policy that actually makes it so that, employers can't permeate that time. And so we need to start thinking about the policy level. We need to be thinking about paid family leave and how important that is to have care leave for people that are dealing with grief, that are, dealing with a sick child and a sick parent who all might be living in the same home, and you might be susceptible to getting sick. And this is beyond the pandemic. There's going to be so many other situations where, especially as an aging workforce, we're going to have to be helping, various people within our family. That kind of policy needs to be enacted. We need to be able to have access. The people that were the most critically impacted by burnout were those that were the most vulnerable, most at risk, dealt with financial unhealth. And so, all of these predicaments when it comes to solving for burnout are out of a lot of individuals' control. And that's why self-care alone can't be the answer. But if we all start to think about it in a much sort of broad, future forward way, then I think we'll be able to come up with a strategy that gets everyone involved in the solution.
Well, thanks, Jennifer, for talking with me today. I appreciate having you here. And the book is The Burnout Epidemic: The Rise of Chronic Stress and How We Can Fix It. Everyone have a good day. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.